What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network here on Radio Row. We're on Radio Row here at SEC Media Days in downtown Dallas, Texas. Some of you might have been wondering, hey, where was the show yesterday? Normally you're a Tuesday show. You're a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday show. Well, just be honest with you, I was on Feinbaum yesterday. And I figured it'd be a good time to go big league on you guys and just, skip out on a show. No, all jokes aside, we had some things to go to yesterday. So we moved yesterday's show to today's show. Unfortunately, we don't have like a massive PR department. So you guys didn't get very much heads up on that one. That's on me. I told you last week, make sure the show is on some type of alert system that will avoid any missing of shows. So I hope you took akin to that or took, heedance to that last week when we talked about it. So welcome into tonight's show. It is indeed a loaded one. Here on Radio Row, the ADD brain's going crazy as it was yesterday. A lot of people watching the eye contact movement. When you're out here during the day and you're doing like radio hits and whatnot, everyone's just kind of walking around doing radio. So no one looks at the one guy still doing radio at 7 o'clock, which when you're out here at 7 o'clock, that's what you got going on, right? Yeah, see? Yeah, I made her laugh. But anyways, people stare at you when you're here by yourself. So that's what we got going on. And yeah, ain't nobody outdressed the boy all week. So there's that. Jesse Palmer might have me. I'm not gonna lie. But hey, you look like Jesse Palmer, you're gonna outdress some folks. So there's that. I remember a time on this show where I thought it would be a good idea to wear a suit, or at least a suit and tie, in like every show. I don't know what I was thinking. The original intention was, even though I'm in my garage, I'm going to treat this like it's a television studio. And eventually now we have a television studio and the boy just wears shorts and a t-shirt. So we've kind of come full circle. But nonetheless, no J's on today. We've got the dress shoes on today. Was out yesterday. Yesterday was Georgia's Day. This is primarily a Georgia channel. A lot of people were probably asking or wondering what my thoughts were on yesterday's press availability. So here we have it. Obviously, Georgia Day yesterday. Let's talk about it. Opened up with like a private presser with just local beat reporters over in a private room, no video, audio only. And we got caught up in I think fake news is the new term, or not the new term. It's been around for a while. We got caught up in Kirby didn't get asked about the drive-in thing, classic SEC media, because during his main room presser that went on SEC Network, no, he was not asked about it publicly, about the driving incidences, right? But he was asked ad nauseum in that private beat reporter's room yesterday morning. I think the first 7 or 8 minutes were on just that topic alone. I think he answered and batted off about a half dozen questions about the topic, including mine. I talked about it yesterday. I told you guys my concern. My primary concern is this is a football team that is extremely disciplined. Like in between the lines, this football team listens to and absorbs coaching far better than anybody really in college football based off the way I watch it, right? Very few busted assignments. They're, at the bottom of the pack in terms of total number of penalties per game. They don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't have critical penalties. They're really, really good on the road. They do all the things that show signs of, hey, those players listen to that coach to an extreme, except for this one topic. And that was my concern. And that's exactly what I kind of, alluded to with Kirby in that private room and kind of asked the coach, like, why this message? Why are they not adhering to this message? Why are they not listening to this message? Why is it not being absorbed by your players? And his immediate answer was, that's a really good question. And I wish I had the answers to it. And he went on with this idea and this kind of concept. And he's talked about this on different subjects before, even outcomes and results on football games, right? They, as football coaches, you as a football coach, have to be process-oriented, not outcome-oriented. In other words, as a football coach, all I can do is put in the processes in place, I should say, that make sure the right outcome occurs, right? Because whatever it is, let's boil it down to football, right? All I can do as a football coach is handle the processes Sunday through Friday to make sure that the outcome on Saturday is what I want, right? And sure, I can do some things in game to change those things, but really all the work is done during the processes, right? The practices, the weight room, the offseason, the processes that lead up to the result are the important thing, and those are the controllables for a college football coach. That's the same thought process he's applied to this issue as well. And he said he's really happy with the processes at Georgia. He is not happy with the outcomes right now with this, specific topic with regards to traffic violations. Okay. And part of his process is he's countered them, right? Since the incident in January of 2023, about 400 days, guys. We're well past a year. We're into a year and a half almost, since that tragic incident back in January of 2023. Since that time, about 450 days, whatever it is, right? He said they've counted 162 times. 162 times they have addressed this issue during a team meeting setting. And clearly the message is not being adhered to. So as a football coach, I don't know how much more you can do. And as a content creator and as someone who is kind of tasked with addressing these topics every once in a while, I don't know how much more I can talk about it. Okay. But, if and when it happens again, we'll have to address it again and we'll have to talk about it again. And social media will laugh at you again. And you'll have to go through all of that again, assuming it doesn't happen again. You're all right. Right. I think he talked about, multiple times yesterday about how they've gone as far as, suspending guys. They've kicked guys off the team for incidences like this. I think the direct correlation, at least if you want to put two and two together, who's that player? Well, they announced yesterday David Daniel Sisavon was dismissed for violation of team rules. I would venture to say that was one of the violations of team rules. I think you can put two and two together there. But nonetheless, let's actually talk about his press conference. Okay. I didn't get many ums. I talk about how I love listening to Kirby talk. I love listening to Nick talk. Steve Sarkisian is slowly moving into this kind of mode for me, listening to all these press conferences the last couple of years of his. But I always learn something. They always say something that make me go, I didn't really hear that one from Kirby except for one moment at the very end of his press conference today. He mentioned a term that he kind of calls himself, or rather the mode that he gets into as a head coach during practice. I want to bring that one to you as well at the end of these observations. But, I'd already heard we always get the team mantra. I'd already heard the assume nothing mantra from Kirby Smart, the studying that those guys did on the Nike, the organization that is Nike and Phil Knight, and obviously being one of Nike's primary sponsored schools, they've obviously got a close relationship with Phil Knight and between he and Kirby Smart, and that whole idea of assume nothing and applying that to everything, right? You can't assume that just because we have been good that we're going to be good, right? I can't just assume that because I told you guys Thursday before we came out here to Dallas that, hey, schedule might be a little funky. I can't just assume that you guys are going to, readily adapt, right? Those are the types of assumptions that you can't go about automatically assuming. Assume nothing. And he even applied this to something as simple as, you can't just assume because you know someone's name, you fully know why they're named that, right? He talked about the organizational practice of having everyone in the organizational structure stand up, say their name, why they were named that, what their lineage of that name is, right? Brooks. My first name is Brooks. My dad was a huge Brooks Robinson fan, thought the name was cool. Thomas. My middle name is Thomas. I'm named after my grandfather on my mother's side, Tom Beach. That's where I'm from, right? My dad had no relation to the Baltimore Orioles, but just thought Brooks Robinson was the greatest defensive third baseman of all time. Thought the name was cool. Here we are. All right. But yeah, just the organizational practice of standing up and not just assuming that you know your teammate fully. And even something as simple as, getting to know where and why they are called what they are called. Also talked about how this team seems to be uniquely motivated. Okay. And I got asked ad nauseum this week about Georgia's chip on their shoulder. Lost that 3-point loss to Alabama. Did they feel like as if they were cheated? Did it carry motivation into the offseason, all that good stuff? And I put it this way. I thought in the post-game press conference of the SEC or the SEC championship game, Kirby and the entire team put good riddance to we're going to have this chip on our shoulder bullcrap whatever you want to talk about. They are very intrinsically motivated. They are internally motivated at the University of Georgia. And if you go back and listen to those press conferences, right, it's Kirby Smart, it's Carson Beck, and it's Smile Mondon sitting at that press conference desk after that Alabama loss. And Kirby opens his opening statement with, hey, no number one team has ever gone into a conference championship game, lost that championship game, and then fallen out of the top four. It's never happened. It shouldn't happen. Kind of a brief pause, and then went into the essential statement of, hey, that being said, we didn't handle our business today. We controlled our own destiny in a sport that very few at the time were able to do, and we didn't handle our business. So we can't be out here complaining, bitching, moaning, whatever you want to say about not getting an opportunity. We controlled it. We had the opportunity to make sure we stamped our ticket there, and we didn't control that, and we didn't get the job done, right? That's personal accountability in that set. And then they move forward and try to get better and fill the holes and all that. Just all that coach speak that everyone thinks is coach speak. That's putting it into practice right there. And he talked about it today, right? He talked about how they have never used a negative. He has never used a negative to end a season and tried to use that as fuel for the future season, right? And I always think about it this way, right? Mentally, why would you do that? Mentally, why would you think about negatives in order to create positives? That doesn't really make sense, right? Our brains don't always work like that. Our brains are, most of the time it's good to feed them positive thoughts, right? On top of the fact that you're a new football team. You have a new 35% of your roster is brand new to the football team coming this fall. So the idea that you can just roll over, a mindset from last year or roll over motivation from last year doesn't really make sense if you really think about it critically in today's world of college football. So that made sense to me. Sounds like this football team's going to have their own identity and have their own, motivational factors going into this season. If you go back and listen to that SEC championship game after the press conference, like it's clear as day, they are going to put that in the past and accept responsibility for what it was, right? And coming up short that day. And by the way, how about Greg Sankey just dunking on Florida State the last 2 days, right? Goes up on the podium to start, the SEC, media days here, and essentially says, doesn't punt on the conversation, but does basically says, we're happy with the 16 right now. I don't foresee us getting involved. He didn't say that directly, but I came on here Monday and was like, I don't foresee the SEC going after Florida State and the ACC. About an hour after our show concluded, there were reports out, and it was verified that no, if Florida State and Clemson get out of their ACC deal, the SEC doesn't want really much to do with them. And then you have Sankey's comments today when asked on radio here on Radio Row, essentially about, Georgia getting snubbed, if you will, from the college football playoff. He basically said, hey, you didn't see us stomping around pitching a fit about how Georgia's one of the best 4 teams in college football and deserved to get in, even though we all knew Georgia was one of the best 4 teams in college football. I think it was, and he said we didn't go around stomping and pitching a fit and hanging banners when that happened. There was a direct shot at both Florida State and UCF there simultaneously. So he got a jab in at Florida State, the ACC, and the Big 12, all encompassing right there with one little jab, while also speaking well about his own, conference there. I see you guys in the chat talking about the suit, all that good stuff. Hey, I'm going to tell you what, if the wife's listening right now, this is my wedding tie, and I did wear a white shirt, and I was wearing a blue suit. I'm going to tell you right now, honey, that was 5 years ago this fall. You bought good on the stock. You bought low, and you bought a lot of it, because I'm looking way better in this thing now than I was 5 years ago. I'm going to tell you that. So shouts out to the chat for showing some love on the suit. I told you guys Monday when I was on the show, it is you. No matter what you do this week, if you are here and you are asked questions, you are going to get asked about Texas and Oklahoma. It don't matter who you are. It don't matter if you ain't got neither of them on the schedule. You're going to get asked, even though that's not possible, right? You are going to have to talk about Oklahoma and Texas. And I told you Monday, don't ask Kirby. Don't do it. Just don't ask him the question, because I know what he's going to tell you. The SEC is great. Texas is good. Congrats. And that's exactly what happened. I hope the listeners of this show right here, we're out here just 100%, standing up, clapping it up for the Film Guy Network, because we nailed it. I told you to bet everything you love on the fact that he was going to swat the piss out that question, and that's exactly what he did. So there was that. I asked him specifically about Carson's mindset. We got to talk to Carson this morning, and I might play those interviews for you guys at some point on the network, maybe when we got a little bit stronger Wi-Fi and we're back in the stew, if you will. But I talked to Carson this morning, and he's very unique. You guys know this, but the mindset of, you know, go back to that UAB game. It's not just I got to sit my freshman year. You know, I'm a red shirt for a year. I'm going to sit. Everyone wants to play immediately. That's one thing, right? But it's the red shirt freshman year when it's UAB coming to town, JT's hurt, and they got to decide, hey, who's going to start this football game? And they tell Carson, you know, he's the 2 at that time. They tell Carson on a Monday, hey, I know you're the 2, but you got to battle for it. You got to battle for it. Stetson and you are going to have open competition all week. And he loses that battle, or is chosen, you know, Stetson's chosen over him for a variety of reasons, that he didn't win it, right? You know how many people and how many young people at that point fold like a cheap suit and they just hit the portal. They just call it a day. There's been a number of examples in Georgia history recently since the portal's been open of this, right? You lose a position battle and you immediately start feeling some type of way. You immediately shut down. You immediately go to the portal. His mindset was the complete opposite. His mindset was, I lost this job. Now why? Why did I lose this job? I clearly am not good enough. I'm clearly not prepared to win this job right now. So that is the case. Those are the facts. How am I going to change that without leaving, without bailing, without quitting, without going elsewhere? How do I change this? What a very unique and old school mindset to approach your career. Again, this is an anomaly. This is a unicorn in college football, and you guys know this. And I asked Kirby about this in the sense that, hey, what is it about him that created that mindset to stick around and fight it out? Because that is certainly an intangible that you would think a program like Georgia would be searching tooth and nail to figure out how to make that intangible tangible. Because in the world, Kirby talked about it today, this is a staying power world. If you're out here recruiting, you better be recruiting with staying power in mind. In other words, you better be recruiting football players that want to stick it out and ride it out, because that's what you need. You need retention. You need staying power on your roster, because Carson, like he said today or yesterday, Carson is a byproduct of development at Georgia. They know if you go in there, you stick it out, you ride it out, you develop, you're going to become a better football player. There is no doubt about it. In other words, the process works at Georgia for development. The development process at Georgia works. So, you know, how can y'all go about studying him and figuring out what it is about his mental makeup that created that initial, I'm going to fight, I am not going to flight. You know what I mean? And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, this idea of being self-reflective, okay? Being someone who is constantly able to be self-critical and inward thinking, right? How can I get better? How can I approach things? How can I improve? How can I slightly get better? We talked about it, approaching it as individuals, not even as athletes. This is a young man who obviously did it himself. So how can you study? And I talked about this with Brock a while ago. He's very, you know, that work ethic. That's an intangible trait. How can you find that out? I think that might be the next evolution of sports science, and figuring out how to place tangible evidence on intangible characteristics. I think that is billion-dollar ideas in the sporting world. If you can just figure out how to quantify those things, it would go a real long way in a sport that is so mental, right? It's physical, it's height, weight, speed. There are boxes you have to check to play at a program like the University of Georgia. But once you get there, the separators are all neck up. They're all intangibles. They're all things we can't place, you know, quantifiable data upon. And the moment we're able to do so, man, you're going to see a scouting evolution in the world of football, college and professional. He talked about how the schedule motivates the offseason. That's how I kind of justified or ingested what he was saying about how they have a really tough schedule this year, obviously, right? And his first thought was to complain about it or to think, damn, how did I draw this? But that's not how things work at the University of Georgia. That's not the mindset at the University of Georgia. You take something like a tough schedule like they have this year, you use it as a motivating factor. You use it as we've got to live up to the standard. We got to play week in and week out. And this is something he's talked about, year in and year out now. I have recalled it since the Clemson opening. He talked about that Clemson game all offseason in 2021, leading up to that year, about how having a great game like that to kick off the year really motivates the offseason, really kicks it into high gear, has those offseason workouts with a different type of vibe, a different type of feel. And I think they've certainly lost that over the last couple of years with opening with, Kent State, Ball State, whoever it was, the non-traditional, non-Power 5, non-top 25 opponents, kind of a snoozer to open the season. You can feel that in the preseason camp leading up to week 1. He said that's been tangible over the last couple of years, palpable, I should say. You can feel it, right? You can feel those things in the lead up to the last couple of opening games of the year. This year, having Clemson being that opening game, there's a bit of a life, a bit of a juice inside the building, and that's something certainly that's positive if you're a Georgia fan listening to this today. He kind of warned college football about Mykel Williams. And it's not the first time I've heard him talk about Mykel not being healthy last year during fall camp and the importance of fall camp and all that good stuff. We've heard Kirby, talk about how physicality in fall camp prepares you for the season and gets you ready for an SEC season. The most famous example of this, and the one that sticks out in my mind, is Dan Campbell talking about how the studies show we have to callous the body, right? We have to callous the body and prepare it for the warfare that we're ultimately going to put it through during the fall. During the regular season, in an NFL slate. And now college football, you can play 17 games. Guess how many you play in NFL? 17. So the schedule and the longevity and the length, rather, of the college schedule is now, it's not identical in every situation, but it could become identical for a lot of some college football teams this year if they make the run and they're not a top seed. You play 17 games in college football now. That is a very, very long season, and that is something that is ultimately going to be, impacted and is going to impact, rather, how you go about your ultimate, practice schedule and how you go about building the depth of your roster. I've gone 22 minutes in now. This is what happens when the boy don't have an intro, the boy don't have a countdown clock, the boy don't have a production assistant or any producer sitting over there across from me. I forgot to give a shout out. I forgot to direct y'all to give us some support here. If you have not already, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you damn sure haven't already subscribed to this network, you need to go ahead and do so. The Film Guy Network is where it's at. We are live streaming Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday on normal weeks. Okay. This week a little bit altered due to the SEC Media Days out here in Dallas, Texas. Also want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. If you have not already, head over to prizepicks.com. Use promo code Brooks. You get 100% deposit match over there. I got more observations. Hope you guys been playing college football 25. Your boy's dog ass at that game. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get better. Copious, and I mean copious, amounts of interceptions. I mean, I throw more interceptions than a NASCAR fan drinks cold beers on race day. I'm telling you, it's putrid, the quarterback play that your boy puts on display in that football game. Let's continue these observations on Kirby's press conference from yesterday. KJ Bolden, ready to roll. He didn't talk about it on the main stage, but he was asked about it, and he gonna talk about it. And you should know that I don't think there's any doubt in my mind KJ Bolden gets like serious burn week 1, game 1, Clemson, top 25 matchup, night, or noon kick, prime time, ABC, all that good stuff. You're going to see KJ Bolden on the field, I would imagine, relatively early. He's just physically ready. He's mentally ready. And I think I've talked about this on this show before, but I think that room needed a little bit of an MFer. You know what I mean? They need a bad MFer. Malachi is a great human. Malachi's a great football player. I don't think Malachi talks shit. I think Malachi shows up, does his work, leads by example, but I don't think Malachi's a super vocal leader. I think the same could be said about Dan Jackson. I think that room needed a bad mother, for a lack of a better term. They needed an MFer in that group, and I think that's exactly what he is. Rudy has it right here, an enforcer. That's the one I got right there. So yeah, I think KJ is going to play really, really early on in the season. It's going to be akin to Malachi, in my opinion. I talked to Malachi about that yesterday in our media availabilities, and just as the beat of like, man, when did you know you were going to get early PT? And he said in fall camp, because he was having a great fall camp. KJ had a great spring. KJ's had a great summer. I think KJ is going to roll it over and have a great fall camp. I think KJ is going to have a very impactful fall freshman year. So all of those things are really, really good news for Georgia's secondary. The revelation, I should say, nationally about Georgia, fining was the word. Fining is not the word, though, because you can't fine non-employees. The withholding of NIL money is something we've talked about on this show for a while now. The most recent example of this in terms of mentioning, we don't do a lot of bag watching on this show. We don't pocket watch. We don't do that kind of stuff. We don't really talk about money a whole lot on this show because I don't want you in my pockets, so I ain't going to be in your pockets. You know what I mean? That's kind of my stance on this type of stuff. But I believe the last mention of this for us was about Trevor Etienne, about how, hey, man, if you get in trouble at Georgia, if you think you're getting your check that month, you out your damn mind, okay? And it's been like this for a little while. There ain't much else to kind of punish these guys with other than withhold their checks and when they get in trouble like this. So that wasn't really revelation to folks that have been watching this channel, okay? So I wasn't really surprised there. Also wasn't surprised to hear him talk about, Jordan Hare the way that he did. That's a very, very tough place to play. He said it's one of, if not the hardest places to play on the planet. Carson Beck talked about it today and said it's got voodoo in it. It's got a little, bad juju, if you will, for them road teams. Something about it. Kirby said, throw out the records, throw out the roster. It don't matter. That's going to be a fist fight when you walk up into that building. And it is held true for the better part of, as long as I've been watching the SEC. There have been numerous examples of how in the hell did that team get beat today? Jordan Hare, voodoo, boogeyman, whatever you want to call it. That place has got some funky, things going on right there. Can't be calling me mid-show, baby. Can't be calling me mid-show. Ain't going to pick it up unless you are a primary source. We might have to go to the bathroom and take that phone call. Y'all know how it is every once in a while when this show, things like that do happen every once in a while. It ain't happening today. Not for that one. That one's not quite special enough. I hope they're not watching right now. Kirby also very, very avid. Yeah, I think that's the word. He ain't gonna let the SEC championship game get removed. I know there's a lot of talk with conference or college football playoff expansion. There's a lot of talk about, hey, maybe this is the opportunity to remove conference championship games because there's nothing but a potential loss or a potential bad news scenario coming out of a conference championship game. Georgia was just at the butt end of that last year. Had they just, opted out somehow of that SEC championship game, they're probably in a college football playoff. But they fight for a conference championship game. They lose by 3 points, and they don't go to the adamant. That's the word. They don't go to the college football playoff. Kind of a downfall of playing in that conference championship game. I'm gonna tell you right now, that dude loves that game, and I know it's not lip service because he's talked about it, and it's the same message over and over again, and it's the same passion every time he talks about it. Kirby Smart thinks the SEC championship game is the pinnacle of college football. He thinks it's one of the greatest games available in our sport. Me personally, I've never gotten those vibes from it, but I've never played in it. I've never coached for it. So what is my opinion? It don't really mean a hill of beans. I think there are other more pageantry games. He speaks about it like it's the damn Super Bowl. Honestly, he compares it to that. And I don't think there's any way in hell the SEC goes without having that one in regards to all that stuff. So, yeah, so Big Brug, you're giving off defense attorney vibes. I was thinking more, and this is kind of an awkward time to be talking. I was thinking more of like White House official, or guy definitely works for Secret Service, but they don't trust him with a pistol, that type shit. I think I was giving off those vibes more so than, what'd you say, defense attorney. Even though, keeping folks out of jail would be a noble cause. Is that what the DA does? I think the DA works. The DA puts bad guys in jail. I don't feel that way. Chief of staff vibes. That's what I'm getting. or work on Wall Street, type shit. And then they hear me talk and they're like, nah, no way. You must talk sports for a living. Brooks Spector, see what I mean? Out here, it is giving Harvey vibes. It is definitely lawyer suit more so than what I had on yesterday. Yesterday, I'm gonna tell you what, I had that shit on yesterday. Ain't too many people out here pulling off olive green suits, but your boy did. So there is that. Where were we at? Auburn, tough place to play. SEC ain't going nowhere. I got my for you. That's a word. That's a football word from the preacher himself, Kirby Smart. Yesterday, the word was watchdog. Okay. He says now that he is no longer a coordinator, he goes into what he calls watchdog mode during practice, where he's going around and he is essentially making sure everything is up to standard and making sure that drills are appropriate. And he's coaching. He's coaching his coaches, not even coaching his players. He's allowing his coaches to coach the players. He's overseeing his coaches. And I thought that was a brilliant term, watchdog, right? And you know what I got to thinking about immediately as I was writing the notes and as I went back and listened to it again today? Damn, he might as well just added Billy. You know what I mean? Just at Billy Napier next time, because I've been harping on that one for a fat minute on this show. I love the fact that Billy, envisions himself an elite offensive mind and a great coordinator. And I love that Billy set career highs for Graham Mertz last year. I love that Graham Mertz ain't never started a season and not thrown double-digit interceptions and managed to only throw 3 last year on a team that was right. I love that. But I don't love the fact that they clearly have oversight and they let things slip through the cracks in a variety of different ways because he's too hyper-focused on this. Here is arguably the best defensive coordinator in college football. If Kirby Smart were a free agent to be a defensive coordinator for whatever reason, that dude is on an NFL staff somewhere as a defensive coordinator. He is going to kick somebody out of their NFL job as a defensive coordinator. This is how good of a mind on that side of the football he is. Yet, because he does have great coordinators and because Glenn Schumann is around, he is allowed to be CEO. He is allowed to be overseer. He is allowed to be watchdog. Wonder why they don't run 10 guys out onto the field goal unit. These things start, why? Steve Sarkisian's a unicorn in this sport in the sense that he has a football team that might win a national title this year, and he's not overseeing. He's offensive coordinating. And yeah, Kyle Flood's there, and he's a great offensive coordinator, and they've had continuity for 4 straight years there. But I think everybody in the world knows that Steve's calling those plays. That is unique to Steve. He is the only national title contending coach doing that right now. Ryan Day had to go pay $2.5 million for UCLA's head coach and Chip Kelly, to make sure that his butt didn't get bit off, or his national title chances didn't get cut off by that idea, right? So that alone tells you something, okay? Everybody out here saying I'm angling for ESPN jobs, cuz I'm doing me. Nobody worry about none of that. Nobody worry about none of that. Talk to my agent, cuz. I'm just kidding. I ain't got no agent. But who knows? Nah, dude. All you got to do is come out here, grind your ass off, and put that shit on. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't wait to tell my Taylor that we were the talk of the town. That little George B reporter over there that don't nobody know nothing about. That some bitch be putting it on. Tomorrow I ain't got a suit though. Tomorrow we're gonna have to rock some Men's Warehouse, just some standard, business casual wear. Something. I don't know. But hey, let's talk about these players. They had a really, really good day out here yesterday as well. Carson found the foos. I talk about foos on this network. I am trademarking the term. I don't know if anybody ever else is going to use it. Foos, fake juice. You gotta have it. You gotta have it. I'm telling you right now, it's so important. It's so important as a football player. It's important as a father. It's important as an employee. It's important in your life. Because I'm telling you right now, you're going to show up and you're not going to want to do something and you're going to have to fake it. you're going to have to fake the energy and the aura as you would for, and you got to get to that level as you would of doing something that you absolutely love, right? You got to be able to dig deep and find some foos. And I found last year that Carson, so introverted, right? We've heard so much about him being introverted. He doesn't want to do this, right? It's not what he wants to do. He wants to go out and throw footballs. That's what he wants to do. He wants to play football like everybody else, right? But when you get in these settings, you got to find the foos, baby. Just like when you throw a touchdown pass, it's not of your nature to be outgoing, demonstrative, and exciting. But guess what? Your teammates need to see that from you. They respond to that. They respond to that energy. So guess what? Sometimes you got to fake it. Sometimes you got to find that foos. I see foos. I see the foos from Carson Beck out here, man. I see smiles. I see energy. I see a willingness to be here. And he's always been super introspective. He's always been very, very smart and quick-witted and understands football and can speak it at a high level. So his words have always been there. The fake energy has not, and you could feel it. If that was your first time watching Carson, you were like, man, this Carson guy, he's really confident within himself. You watched that guy 12 months ago. He was not that. Okay, he found the foos, and that's an important thing for me. I pinned him down. I pinned him down because I'm not tired of it. I'm in search of a different answer with regards to how in the hell did you do this? How in the hell did you develop into a 73% completion percentage in the dark, homie? In the dark. Was out here getting no run, no PT, and all of a sudden you develop into what everyone kind of connotes as the number one, consensus quarterback on the upcoming NFL draft boards. How did you do that? And here's the caveat, Carson. When I ask you this question, you cannot tell me it's because there were great players on the defense when you were playing scout team quarterback. I've heard that one. That's not unique to you, Bubba. Gunner's getting that right now. What was unique to you was whatever else you were doing, however else you applied those things. What were you doing outside of the field? How are you developing? How are you absorbing information? What were you doing outside of that 2 hours a day when you get 60 reps against the scout as a scout team quarterback? How did you get better? Because I promise you right now, just playing against Trayvon Walker and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter, yes, that calloused him. It made him better. But those ain't live bullets. There ain't no consequences there. There is nothing there that is going to make you, 100% translatable in terms of your performance and your development in those closed doors to what we saw on Saturday. So what was it? And his mindset was just basically, becoming obsessed in the studying and the habits of being a quarterback, the footwork, the timing, the playbook. He mentioned, when I asked him about this, he mentioned the idea that there is never going to be a moment this year when he comes to the line of scrimmage and he doesn't know 100% where the ball is going based off what he's getting, unless there's some type of disguise, meaning I show this and I move to that, right? Middle field's open pre-snap, middle field's closed. Now post-snap, we disguised, we rolled, right? Whatever. Unless that happens, there's nothing that's going to surprise him. That right there is going to make him a much better football player, you would imagine, even though I don't know how much more room there is to grow for him based off the way he played last year. Talked to Mykel Williams. I put the interview out on Twitter yesterday. I love when I have the opportunity to ISO one of these Georgia football players and really just get like 5 or 6 questions in a row. Because a lot of these guys I've already had a report for, like Mykel, I covered in high school very, very extensively, right? Covered a couple games, covered his workouts, covered his camp circuits, was very, very in tune to the Mykel Williams recruitment and had a relationship prior to him even getting to Georgia. Once they get to Georgia, that ceases to exist, right? Your professionalism means you need to, that's it. You cut that relationship off the moment they get to Georgia. The next time you talk to them is when you get a media availability. All right. So I love the idea that in that press room, I had an opportunity to ISO him and kind of talk to him for an extended period of time. And one of the first questions I had was, take me through the discussion of we're going from defensive end to now, at least having some type of package at the jack position. And that right there was a joint decision based off what, Mykel told me yesterday, in that interview with him, that it was kind of I want to do this, and them saying we need you to do that, right? We want you to do it as well, as a mutual decision and a joint decision. And he also mentioned putting that package in. I don't think, guys, this is a 100% set in stone. Mykel's only going to be playing Jack. See you later, Chaz Chambliss. I think this is going to be a very multitude of positions this year for Mykel Williams. The reason being, it's going to be really, really hard for offenses, especially, weeks 1 through 5, to identify where he's going to be, to figure out some type of tendency of why he is where he is, so you can dictate where he's going to be. A lot of offensive coordinators will see what defenses do, and then they will find weaknesses and predicate a game plan based off that. Well, you're going to have a real hard time doing that to Georgia this coming up year with just the variety of different packages that they're going to have put into place for a guy like Mykel Williams. You throw on top of that guys like Jalen Walker, and oh, by the way, how do we get Raylan Wilson involved? And oh, by the way, maybe there's a nickel package that looks a little bit different. What happens if Dalen Everett bumps into the nickel, and now Daniel Harris is coming off the bench, or maybe Julian Humphreys coming off the bench at corner, right? This multitude, this variety of packages, this is something that most offensive-minded coaches talk about, right? Steve Sarkisian talked about it today, being multiple and causing problems for defenses by being multiple. Well, that's something that Georgia's now going to have an ability to do defensively because of their variety of personnel packages and their variety of talents, I should say, on that defensive side of the football. Double-breasted suit on the big man. Double-breasted suits making a return. I'm going to tell you right now, yours truly could never pull off a double-breasted. However, if anybody can do it, my Taylor could try. All right. I don't think I would look good in one. In fact, I think the only way I could pull off a double-breasted suit would be to perhaps rock a turtleneck beneath it. And I'm not opposed to a turtleneck, a little T-neck. I'm not opposed to it. I've certainly rocked it before. Rocked one, earlier this year. However, I don't think I could pull one off. A double-breasted suit on a man as round and rotund as I don't believe would be ideal. The other thing about that suit, he had one of them 3 button-up, little undershirt things that isn't a collared shirt but isn't a T-shirt. And the 2 bottom buttons were black. The top button was blue or red, excuse me. And I'm going to tell you, that's how you knew it was personalized. That's how you knew that was not off the rack from Amazon. That sumbitch got picked up at a designer, right, for him. So shouts out to the suit on that, man. I told you I wanted to see it because that's a lot of fabric on that individual. That is a very large human. Malachi, he knew college football was an option in middle school, is what he told me. Because that guy's so gifted, a guy's so blessed from the Lord above with how good of an athlete he is. And when you're that great, people tell you you're that great from a young age, especially when you grow up in a town like Jefferson, where football's all the rage. If you ain't playing football, you wrestling, and you doing so at a damn good rate, right? Malachi, when did you know that, I might be playing on Sundays and doing this for a living? And his answer was basically, I kind of knew college was on the horizon in middle school. It was very evident to him that he was going to have the opportunity to play collegiate football. And then as soon as he got to college football, he said within, the first couple of months of being on campus, it was kind of evident to him that he was going to have a shot to make it on Sundays based off what older guys were telling him. When he got on campus, listening to the older football players that were on their way to the NFL, listening to them tell him that, he's got it. He's going to ultimately do that. That was ultimately a real kind of moment, like a stamped moment for him during his collegiate time. So that was an interesting thing to hear. He's a pro's pro, though. I think an NFL football team or an NFL organization is going to be really, really happy the moment they sign that guy. I don't know what my player comp would be. I don't really have one. I feel like people probably felt this way about the Kyle, the safety that was at Notre Dame. He's not that football player from a physical standpoint. He's not as tall and as long. That's going to make me really, really angry that I don't remember his name. Kyle's his first name. How am I forgetting his last name? CTE brain. But he's going to make everybody better. He's just a 100% home run hit in terms of, he's going to be a great pro. It's a clean eval, and you don't get very many of those, particularly the defensive back position. People say Carson getting confidence from the girl he's dating. Probably the $1.5 million and the Lambo truck. That would make me uber confident. You know what I mean? That would make me uber confident. Y'all are wilding in the chat tonight. Kyle Hamilton, appreciate you, Cedric. I'm gonna get the chat's opinion at the very end of tonight's show about the belt that I chose to wear. Because standard is wear a brown belt with brown shoes. I spun it up because your boy fashion a little bit different. That's it for the Georgia notes. Let's real quick. Let's rat-a-tat-tat the rest of the observations so far from the last 2 days. Brent Venables, side of the mouth talker. Everything at the end of his words goes out the side of the mouth. The other thing, very, very defensive coordinator. So defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator energy on my man. Okay. So much so that he basically sprinted to the podium, and he did so not realizing that his heart rate was already going to be escalating because he had nerves. Okay. Like all these guys do, believe it or not, because they're human. And you speak in front of a room of 700 people on national television, you're probably going to feel a little some type of way unless, you've been doing it for years. No, he doesn't do both sides. He only does one side, and it's his right side. But anyways, had to catch his breath. Had to catch his breath in the middle of his first 4 or 5 sentences. That was noticeable and palpable. I don't have much on the actual presser, to be honest with you. I think he's got good energy. And from what it sounds like to me, the Oklahoma beat is still very, very up in the air about that individual. And if the beat's up in the air, I don't know how the fan base feels. We'll find out this year. I told you, if the beat's up in the air and the fan base is up in the air, and, oh, by the way, they're out here doing the fake contract extension. Hey, leak that we gave him a 6-year deal, even though we just added an additional 2 onto his 4-year contract and gave him a $750,000 raise. They waiting and seeing too. I think everyone's kind of a wait and see mode right now on the Venables train out there in Oklahoma. Josh Heupel, low energy. I don't think that's his deal. I don't think he likes to do that, to be honest with you. I think he's introverted by nature, and he just so happens to be a football savant on the offensive side of the football. But here's my only negative. Buddy, you make $3.5 million a year, $4.5 million a year. If you show up in the same suit next year as you did last year, buddy, what are we doing? Where's all that money going? Where's your stylist? Making all that goddamn money show up in the same damn suit a year from one another. Ain't nobody telling. Same shoes, same goddamn pocket square. Sorry, Navy guy Chris Foster up in the chat telling me he makes $9 million. You make $9 million a year and you rocking the same suit. It checks out though. He a football guy. That's what I'm saying. He ain't even got the energy to do this. He don't want to do this. He brings a little bit of the foos, brings a little bit of that fake juice. But damn, Josh, can we wear a different suit next year, please? Love pissing off Tennessee fans in the chat every once in a while. I missed Eli Drinkowitz's press conference. You can blame it on Paul. I was doing Paul Feinbaum during that one. I hope he was fun. I hope, I gave shit to Shane Beamer about being too fun. So maybe I need to hold it back on Eli, because Eli is bordering between good football coach and good quote. And I don't think you can be both all the time. You can be a good quote because you said some, that's good football. And you can be a good quote because you out here saying quotable shit that people can aggregate and run with headlines on. I feel like sometimes Eli falls on that one. You know what I mean? He just be out here giving the quote, like I stand on business with the Josh Heupel stuff at the end of that football game. Missed Drink. I regret missing Drink. May or may not go back and watch it. Probably won't. So there's that. I'm going to save Kalen DeBoer for last here. Jeff Lebby, no tie, and extremely, extremely nervous. Hands all over the place, you know, the whole time. Toe tapping, flushed, red cheeks, very, very nervous. So, yeah, doesn't have anything to do with whether or not he's going to have a great year this year or a good year or whether or not Mississippi State had hired the right guy. Has nothing to do with that. You can just tell, obviously notice. We've reached the golden hour of the show here as we peak over 800 viewers. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate, reviewing, all that good stuff. Billy brought a little bit more juice this year than he did last year. And I think far more importantly, Billy did what Shane Beamer failed to do. Billy came out here and sold optimism around his program without setting himself up for failure when he doesn't make a college football playoff. Because Shane Beamer and Billy Napier are probably staring down the barrel of a very relatively similar gun where we might have to give you another year, but we really want to fire you after this one because of your contract. They're staring down the very similar caliber of weapon. And one guy's out here doing the fun, and one guy's out here doing the fun, and we should be competing for playoffs. That was Shane Beamer's message the other day. And Billy's like, hey, I love our team. Got a lot of coming back, a lot of people coming back. But I ain't going to say no stupid shit. That was the vibes today from Billy. And I'll give him a little props to that. Going to close with Sark, actually. We're going to talk about DeBoer. I think Kalen DeBoer has something going for him, you know, tremendously. That's not what I meant to say. I might snap this one on social media. Kalen DeBoer's best trait, you know what it is? He ain't nothing like Nick Saban. I don't even know if they share a common attribute, to be honest with you. And I think the natural inclination, myself included, when Kalen DeBoer was hired out of Washington, what? Why didn't y'all Saban tree? Why didn't y'all Southeastern Conference? Why didn't y'all find somebody that's, you know, got some ties to the base? Why didn't y'all find somebody that your fan base already knew or was relative, had a relationship with or was an understanding of? And you know what? Maybe Greg Byrne's a little bit smarter than everybody else, because maybe Greg Byrne figured out what I figured out today, listening to DeBoer talk and listening to Tyler Booker talk and listening to Jalen Milroe talk. You know what you find out pretty daggone quickly? That he is nothing like Nick Saban, and that's good. That the number one thing I heard from his players today was, Tyler Booker said this, he doesn't try to be Coach Saban. And if anyone were to have come in there and even remotely tried to be Nick Saban, they would have fallen on their face. The team would have not taken to it very well. And Dan Lanning's a great football coach. Dan Lanning, friend of the show. Dan Lanning, awesome. Dan Lanning, top 5 football coach in college football, in my opinion, right now. Tremendous. But had Dan Lanning gone to Alabama, do you think some of his players would have been spurned a little bit by, man, this guy really is trying to be like Coach. This guy really is trying to be like Saban. DeBoer's never going to have that because DeBoer is nothing like him. DeBoer's processes are nothing like him. DeBoer's offense, nothing like him. Defense, nothing like him. They're very, very different from Nick Saban. And I think that's a very, very good thing for the University of Georgia. How do you follow a legend? Well, you maybe swerve. You know, maybe you jump lanes a little bit so that oncoming traffic doesn't look as heavy and daunting. I thought that was noticeable during DeBoer's not only speech, but listening to his players talk about their initial impressions of their new head coach. Sarkisian was absolutely dialed today, folks. Absolutely dialed. Wearing a burnt orange suit jacket, bold. See, this is what I'm talking about. Bold. Steve Sarkisian looked like he makes almost $10 million today. You know what I mean? But anyways, burnt orange, very, very bold statement right there to wear with the suit jacket. But I thought more so than any other football coach that has spoken to this point this week, Steve Sarkisian, in his opening 16, 17-minute statement, addressed every single potential question and topic that anybody in that room could have possibly thought of, except for Arch Manning, which was the very first question he got. Right? I mean, he hit everything. He talked about the transition. He from the Big 12 to the SEC. He talked about getting new rivalries back. He talked about building the roster line of scrimmage based. He talked about Quinn Ewers coming back. He talked about the development for Quinn to have. He talked about the new transfers that he's got in there. He hit absolutely every talking point about his football team that was ultimately there. And I think that was basically what you're supposed to do, in my opinion, with an opening statement at a point like this. I thought he did an extremely, extremely good job. I love the juice, man. And I love the intentionalness that he brought with his press conference today. Everything was clean. Everything was intentional was the word, intentional. And that's good stuff to have as a head football coach. Cutting through the bullshit and getting right to it as a football coach is paramount, especially in today's world where attention spans are doggy duty. We got another day tomorrow. We do have another day tomorrow, and I am honestly hoping it's not a snooze fest. I'm looking at you, Hugh. I need Hugh Freeze to pull a rabbit out the hat. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Marky Stoops ain't going to do it. Marky Stoops ain't going to bring the foos tomorrow. He ain't. This ain't his event. This ain't what he's supposed to be doing. He a football coach. He ain't got no time for this. And by the way, he's a made man for lack of a better term, up in Kentucky. I don't think he got much of a leash at all. I think he just gets to roam wherever he wants. Sam Pittman, we're probably going to get a joke or two. We're probably going to get a courteous laugh from the room or two. But I don't know. I don't know much about Mike Elko, but he don't strike me as someone that's going to come out here with intentions to light the room up. So I'm looking at you, Hugh. I need something. I need a good Bible verse. I need a story about your days at Ole Miss. A good one, a juicy one. I need something. I need something for Hugh tomorrow to make Thursday great. This was a great show. I appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. Appreciate you guys for tuning in all week. Shout out to the Taylor. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you. Love you. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. I'm going to go do some networking. And maybe I end up on a network. I'm just kidding. This is the network. See ya.